All right, so what I want to talk about is the cheating in college, topic of cheating in college, and what the impact is on you and the students and the university, cheating on tests, cheating on homeworks. So, okay, so let's just say we have a class that has 5 students in it. And the students are student A, student B, student C, student F1, student F2. That's their names. Right? And student A has a 93 average, and based on the rubrics at the beginning of the semester, that student would get an A in the course. Right? Student B has an 84 average and deserves a grade of B in the course. Student C has a 75 average and would deserve a C. Student F1 has a 29 average and would deserve an F. Student F2 has a 14 average and would deserve an F. Okay, so for simplicity reasons, we have no pluses or minuses, A minus, B plus, right? Just to keep it simple. Just trying to make a simple point here. So if the professor grades everybody correctly, the students will get the grade that they deserve, these grades. Okay, all right, so that makes sense. So, now suppose, almost the same example, but let's say student F1 has a 99 average and student F2 has a 96 average. The other 3 students, A, B, and C, stay the same. So what would happen? Okay, if the professor grades everybody correctly, they will get the grades again that they deserve. These grades, right? A, B, C. Right? Makes sense. Okay, so suppose the department chair or the dean or the provost, and this pretty much happens at every school. The big problem at a lot of the Ivy League colleges was that the grades were too high, grade inflation. So they want the professors to curve so that no...
Why would grades so high be a problem exactly?
Well, all right, so that's a good question. What if you had a school where everybody gets an A?
Well,
Right.
that's hard to believe. But
No, but if it, all right, but suppose it happened, then what does it mean to have graduated from that school if everybody gets an A?
oh, that's
You know,
yeah.
so it's just to kind of have some distinction.
Oh,
So, but I kind of cover that, it's a very good question. Like, if everyone happens to be really good one year, then they should get high grades. But there's a lot of times and ANALES schools, you know, there are accreditation boards. I kind of cover that in this talk a little bit later.
Okay.
They want to see, you know, is the school getting better year from year? And the indication would be that the students' grades get like slightly better every year.
Oh.
Problem is they'll eventually get better till everyone's getting an A, and then this, again, something's wrong.
Oh.
So, yeah, but no, it's a good question, like why would it be a problem? But it could just mean that you have teachers who are just giving out high grades,
Oh, okay.
and then one teacher could be easier than another teacher, and then the students are just jumping around looking for the easiest teacher.
Oh, okay.
So they usually would do something like this, where they'll say, you know, the class average has to be like a B plus, you know, somehow pushing the grades down. So now what would end up happening is the teacher would have to curve some students' grades down.
Oh.
So maybe these 2 students get an A, and then the person who kind of deserved an A gets a B, and the person who deserves a B gets a C, and the person who deserves a C gets an F. Now the person who gets the F has to take the course again and pay tuition again, and the person who gets a C, maybe the rules are you need a B for it to count towards your major.
Oh.
Sometimes there's rules
Yeah,
like that.
there are courses that if you get, like in calculus, if you get a D, you have to take it again because it's not.
Right, it doesn't meet the prerequisite for the
Yeah.
next course, so,
Yeah.
so even this person might have to repeat the course,
Yeah.
because a C doesn't meet the prerequisite for a course they need. So this becomes a problem, and the unfortunate thing is that, you know, they just happen to be in a class with other good students, and that pushed their grades down, right? Okay, so, now suppose, students F1 and F2 cheated to get these averages. right? And they deserve Fs, but their grades are As, right? And then the teacher curves the course grades so these people get grades they don't deserve either. So now nobody's got anywhere near the grade they deserve, right? These students deserve, like I had on the first slide, these students deserve Fs, but they got As. And then these students, because of the curving, the grades got knocked down. So then now this is a big problem, right, if it gets like this, right? So suppose, and I was just talking about classes in general, but in the more science classes, like our classes, computer science, suppose this is happening in a master's degree program, not a bachelor's degree program. In a bachelor's degree program, you have to take many courses for 4 years, but in a master's degree program, it's usually now 10 courses. It used to be 12 courses. All the schools are now competing with each other, so they knocked it down to 10 courses. And so, you know, if this happens in a few of the courses, you're going to throw off the whole master's degree is going to get thrown with the grades, right? So, so if you have 10 courses, and this is happening in most courses, this is a huge problem, huge problem. So when companies come to interview students, they generally want the students maybe with the higher degrees, master's degrees over bachelor's degrees, and the students with the higher GPAs. So if they interview the 4.0 graduate students, and they get idiots, they'll develop an impression that this is not a good university. If the top graduate students are not good, deserves Fs. Imagine what the undergraduate who has an A average, a B average, even though they deserve an A average, they won't even bother looking at them. So they won't even be interested in the other students if something like this happened. If something along this line, if something like this was happening throughout all your classes, right, this could be a big problem, right? So, so in companies like Google and Facebook and IBM and Bell Labs and Apple and startup companies, and I've worked for some of these and I've interviewed at all of them. When they interview applicants, what they have a tendency to do is give you a lot of tests. Have you gone on job interviews yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay. So a lot of the technology companies will test you at the job interview.
Yeah, they told me that. They, basically for EEs, they like to ask transistor questions at some interviews.
For electrical engineering?
Yeah, for electrical engineering, yeah.
Okay. Now you might think if you have a bachelor's degree and master's degree,
Yeah.
why are they asking you test questions? You've taken
Yeah.
4 or 5 years worth of tests. Why are they asking more tests?
Yeah.
And some of it is this.
Yeah.
Some of it. What a lot of these companies will do, some of these companies will have you come in on 2 different days for taking tests. And some companies, even Google, will try to do it all in 1 day, but they'll give you like 5 hours worth of tests on the job interview. And you can't cheat on those tests because you're the only one there.
Right.
And what some companies will even do is they'll give you 1 test and then they'll have someone kind of chat with you for a while they're grading the test. And if you do very poorly, they just say, all right, you know, we're done with you for today.
Yeah.
So that way they don't waste time giving you more tests.
Yeah.
So, and what the companies do, because data science is a big field now, is they record all the data from your interview. So if you go back 2 years later for an interview, they'll go, oh, you came here 2 years ago and did bad on our test. Now maybe you've brushed up and they might give you another test, but they'll have records of this. And they also keep the records of the universities that the applicants came from to get an idea, is this a good university, is this not such a good university? So, okay, so the students, let's say we had this situation again. The 2 students who deserve an F get an A, and then therefore these students get their grades curved down a lot. So student F1 and F2 will not be able to get a reasonable job, and students A, B, and C may not even be considered for an interview. So everyone loses in this case. everybody loses. And the winners are the students and the universities that don't do this in the end, right? So the question is, how can we stop cheating? There's cheating on tests and cheating on projects. So how can we stop cheating? Or how does cheating happen in the first place? So during a test, you can have the exam is going on, and then students are passing notes to each other. And this has been going on, you know, since before the internet. And so then the question is, if the students are communicating with each other, what can we do to stop note passing? Well, you can make the rows wide enough, right, that you can't pass a note, you have to fly a paper airplane. And then students can also look at other students' papers in the middle of the test, right? And students can be talking to each other. So one solution, and this picture wasn't a joke, this is a real picture from a real exam. You can put a box over all the students' heads. And move the seats far enough apart that they can't see each other's papers. So, all right, so that's one idea.
Did they actually do that?
Yeah, not here, not around here, but it's one thing we could do. So then, okay, so cheating during tests. So the student can walk up to the professor during the test and start talking to the professor, you know, what does this mean? You know, question one, I don't understand it. Or sometimes students come up and they give an answer and they say, is my answer correct? And so if the teacher says, yes, it's correct, they work on the next one. If the teacher says, no, it's wrong, they know they have to fix it. They keep fixing it and keep asking, now is it correct? But in either case, this distracts the teacher, and now if you're in a big room, now sometimes in this university we have classes that 25 students, we used to have some that were 40 students. But other universities have classes where there's over 200 students in a class. And if they don't go to a testing center, then they're all sitting in a room of 200 people. And if one gets up and starts chatting with the professor, the other 199 students can all start whispering to each other. So while the professor's distracted, students can now take their cell phone and take pictures of the tests and the pictures to their friends. The friends can answer the questions, send the answers back. And the other one that's pretty popular here at this university is the students keep going to the bathroom during the test. Right? So they read the questions and they run to the bathroom. And we're in the bathroom discussing the test. So this is a true story, happened here. I gave an exam, an operating systems exam, where I asked a question. So this is 3 different students' paper for one particular question. 3 different students' answers for a question. And not to get into the details of the question, but it is an operating systems question, so it had to do with putting a series of numbers together where the least recently used algorithm outperformed the first in, first out algorithm. Not really important what the answer is. What's important is it's a sequence of numbers is the answer. You'd have to give a sequence of numbers that follow a certain rule. And what the students did was they gave an answer. Right? They wrote out an answer. And the student, this is a different student, wrote out the same answer. All the students wrote out the same answer, then realized the answer's wrong. So they crossed it off, and then wrote a new answer, a new improved answer, which was also wrong. But the answer that they first got wrong, they all got the same exact wrong answer, then realized it was wrong, and then gave a new answer that was wrong. So just to make it simple, let's say the question was, what is 1 plus 1? You know, they all said it's 9, then realized 9 is wrong, and they changed it to 15, which is also wrong. But they all got the same exact wrong answers. twice. So it was pretty impressive. So what do you think happened? I mean, I was so one thing, this class had 32 students in it, and 28 gave this answer. 28 students gave the same exact wrong answer twice. So what would you think happened in that case?
I'm guessing one student solved it and sent the picture to all their phones and they copied it on their phone, I'm guessing.
Right, but then, in the middle of the test, realized, oh, that's the wrong answer. And sent it out again with the new answer, which was also wrong. And this was all done in 2 hours, right? And so the other thing is, they didn't know the question before the test started, because then they would have had, a whole week to get it right the first time, right?
Yeah.
So this was actually done live during the test. So, okay, so what could a solution for this be? So, we could say, tell the students they're not allowed to ask questions about the test during the test. Don't allow students to go to the bathroom. So I tried, don't allow the students to go to the bathroom. I said, if you go to the bathroom, the test is over. Right? You hand in your test and you're done. And they complained to the student advisor that I don't let them go to the bathroom. All right. So then what I started doing was, instead of giving a 2-hour test, I would give 2 1-hour tests with a 10-minute break. Right? So you take a 1-hour test, and you turn in your papers, take a 10-minute break, and then another 1-hour test. So they'd start the first test, read the questions, I have to go to the bathroom, run to the bathroom. Then the test would be over, they have a 10-minute break where they could go to the bathroom again. And then we'd start the second test, and 10 minutes into the test, they all have to go to the bathroom. All right, so that was, it was a nice try on my part, but it didn't work.
Wouldn't it be easier to just, like, if they have to go to the bathroom, tell them that they have to leave their phone, like, I guess, in front of the desk or something?
Yeah, but they're also, it's a pretty sophisticated operation. A lot of times, they have a friend outside who's typing in the questions and sending them off to another friend for an answer. So, okay, so anyway, all right, so there's the idea of cheating prior to the test, right, as opposed to cheating in the middle of the test. That last example, they must have done it in the middle of the test. So prior to the test, if the professor gives out the same exams over and over, semester after semester, or some professors here will rotate, like have 2 tests, one in the fall and one for the spring. But with the internet, you can save everything. Right? So it's very easy. It doesn't matter how far back you go, as long as any repeating of test happens. The students can make copies of the exams and then have some expert or something close to an expert do the test to the best of their ability and post it on the internet. And then when the test comes in, the students have the answers memorized. So what's a solution to preventing students from cheating on the test prior to the exam? Well, the professor can make brand new exams every semester, brand new, no rotating old exams. Okay. So now, I mean, that's good, it stops the cheating part, but now there could be big gaps in how hard or easy the test is. Like maybe you took the test in the fall, oh, the tests were easy in that semester, now the tests are hard, because they're totally different. And there's also accreditation boards. You ever like see, this program is accredited, you must go to an accredited school, right? So for in the United States, and actually outside the United States too, ABET does a lot of the science programs accredited. So part of their accreditation process is to look from semester to semester for the exams. And they're looking to see, how does the university prove the students know this, and how do you know they know that? They say, well, question 2 on the final, test that every semester. Or project number 3, we make them write so many lines of code, So it's important that they're giving the same assignments, not 100% of them, but some of them have to be identical from semester to semester to get accredited. So, I mean, it's a great idea to say all brand new tests all the time, but it actually creates some problems. You know, they don't have to be exact copies, but they can't be brand new. That'd be some kind of a hybrid. And the professors can also have a policy that says the students are not allowed to keep their exams. But sometimes it's good, you know, you get a midterm, you get it graded and hand it back, you could learn from your mistakes. And the professor could say, well, you only get to look at it. You can come to my office, I'll let you look at it for 10 minutes, but you have to give it back to me. Well, you could also remember the questions, or a group of students can each remember and then run out in the hall and write them down. Right, so you can always still rebuild them. You could also reconstruct the exam after it's done. So even not letting students have the test, have it to hang on to, they can still rebuild it for the next semester. Okay, so it's like, I guess the point I'm trying to make, it's very difficult to avoid students being able to cheat. Now with, you know, the internet and cell phones and text messages.
Wait, so does ABET just like say you must have the same question every?
No, it's not, so let's say a lot of these accreditations, same thing in business schools or law schools, they do the same thing. They want to know, does your program teach, you know, 25 different things? And how do you prove it? Oh, well, we give a test on this one topic. And we give a big assignment every semester to prove they know another topic. And then you want to show that you give that same assignment every semester. It can't be, well, some teachers do one thing and some teachers do another, and the student can fall through the cracks. So you want to show, like, different courses have different assignments that keep appearing over and over. It doesn't have to be the whole course, but some of it has to be the same from semester to semester. So, yeah, and that's an important, that's an issue that comes up. It makes it harder for the professor to just do whatever they want and change it every semester to try to avoid cheating. So, okay. So, what's the value of cheating on a test? Well, before, this is kind of my opinion, but I think a lot of people think this. Before the internet and email and text messaging, it was very hard to route this information around so quickly. So maybe the value of cheating might be, instead of you getting a B, you would get a B+, but you're risking getting caught. So small gain and maybe a big risk for doing it. But now the value could be you could get an A when you deserve an F. There's a lot of this going around. So that's some of the value of, you know, cheating on tests. Tests usually carry more weight than homework assignments. But when it comes to homework assignments or projects, it's also very easy to cheat now. Again, a lot of it doing with the internet, right? Because, right, do you think so, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I mean, if there's a project that you're working on, say a computer program.
Well, yeah, there's websites like Stack Exchange that may have like a previous program that's similar to yours, I guess.
Right, so a lot of times if you ask a textbook problem, in computer, it could be any field, but sort a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Well, there's websites that have that problem already solved,
Yeah.
right? So it's very easy to just download a copy,
Yeah.
put your name on it, it's
Yeah.
yours. So pretty much anything you can find on the internet, you could just put your name on it, right? So for example, here's Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, right? E equals mc squared,
Yeah.
famous theory of relativity. So I can just download it off the internet, and then what I did was I just typed my name on top of Einstein's name, right? And now I did, right? So Einstein took about 10 years to develop the theory of relativity, and I was able to do it in under 10 minutes, right? I just downloaded, put my name on it, and I'm done, right? So I gotta hope the teacher never heard of Einstein, and then I can do it, right? And maybe get cleaner paper so it doesn't look like it's from 1915. But, yeah, so anyway, so now with the internet, you know, cheating on assignments is like very, very, very easy. So, you know, so if you wanted to cheat on, let's say you want to cheat on projects, that's homework assignments and projects have an overlap. If a professor assigns the same project each semester, semester after semester or year after year, students who solve the project and get a good grade on it could then just email it to a friend. It takes 2 minutes. So like, for example, when I was an undergraduate, it was before the internet came out, right? So in computer science, we'd write these long programs. Now, if I wanted to give it to a friend of mine, I couldn't email it. They didn't have email in those days. So, and there was no thumb drive. I couldn't save it to anybody. The only thing we could do was print it off, and they'd have to type it in character for character. If they left out a semicolon, it's going to have a compiler error. And it's almost not worth it. You might as well just write the program yourself rather than try to copy somebody. So yeah, so it's a big issue when it comes to projects. So how can you solve this one if you were a teacher?
I mean, I guess change your project every semester. Yes.
Yeah, but the other thing is, if you give every student in the class, even if, let's say, in the spring semester, you give everyone the same assignment, as soon as one person solves it, they could just email it to everybody, everyone puts their name on it, and nails it in. And the other thing is, you could also, there's websites now, where for like a small fee, $30 or $50, you can mail the program to somebody, they'll solve it, or maybe it's $100 they'll charge for it, and each of the students chip in $5 and get it solved. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess. I guess kind of like those essay writing websites. Where they,
yeah.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Yeah, but the internet really accelerated the ability to cheat on tests. And some universities, and again, computer science, but this is, I don't know, this could apply to other science disciplines. Some universities require that all of the same sections give the same exact assignment. So for example, this past year, the University of Washington in Seattle, the incoming freshman class, 85% of the students want to major in computer science. 85, 5 out of 6. So there's just too many students, and how do you know who's good and who's not good? And they have to like say, well, you have to get an A or an A- in the first 2 classes, or you can't major in it. You know. Now, in order to be fair, they would require all the intro to computer science courses have to give the same project to everybody. They don't want there to be one teacher who's really hard and another teacher who's really easy, and then all the students who get the easy teacher get to major in computer science, and the ones who get the hard one don't. So they want everyone to have the same project. Well, now you have a whole university and everyone's doing the same project. Same rules, you know, take these numbers and sort them, or whatever the project is. So it'd be very easy for one person to solve it and just give it out to everybody. Right? Then everyone gets 100. So, or, you know, a big subset of the people. So what would be a solution for assignments and projects? Well, the professor can, this happens at this college, without saying any professor's names. Have you ever had a professor, you submit a project, and then the professor interviews each student about their project and says, why'd you do this? Why did you do that? Okay, right, don't say any professor's name, but what I'm saying is, well, the reason they're doing that is they're not sure you did it. They're wondering, did someone else do it, and you put your name on it and handed it in. Now, if you can explain why you did things, still doesn't mean you did it, but at least it shows you somewhat understand it. Well, the problem there is, what the teacher has to do is interview each person individually, one at a time. So the first student who can't answer the questions, because he or she didn't do the project, leaves the room, but knows all the questions that are being asked, can then ask the person who actually wrote the program, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And then the rest of the students can all get the answer, right? So one student takes a bullet for the team, and then the rest all get A's, right? Even though none of them did the program, and Nobody knows why it does what it does. The other thing you could do, the teacher could give an assignment, tell everyone to do something, and then on the next exam, ask questions about the assignment. And they all have to answer them simultaneously, right? Rather than in one in a row and then tell the other ones the answers. So you can do that, but then the same issue exists where they start,
All repeat.
going to the bathroom,
Oh.
the whole, right? So it's just, it's become very difficult to solve this. So, then what teachers need to do is assign a unique program to every student, but now you're back to this issue where if the university needs the programs to be equal in difficulty, and everyone has a unique assignment, what if someone had a hard one and someone else had an easy one? And the certification companies come and they want to see the assignment you gave to the class, and if you say, well, I give a different assignment to each student, then they don't know, are you graduating students who aren't learning as much as the other student,
But doesn't like APED and all the other accreditation companies know that students cheat? Don't they know this?
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that the solutions we're thinking, if we start implementing them, the results start to be, some students could have a much easier program than another, and they don't want to certify that. They want to say, every student meets a minimum criteria. They don't want to hear, well, some students have a hard program and some get an easy one. It depends on how lucky you are. So to make everyone very close, you have to keep giving the same work to everybody, and that's what opens the door to this cheating stuff. So, okay, so the solution to the professor can assign unique assignments to all the students for every semester, and give unique tests to all students for every semester. So instead of, let's say, a midterm being 10 questions, and the teacher keeps giving the same 10 questions over and over, and let's say you have 25 students per class, and over 6 semesters, they keep giving the same test, the professor would have to create 10 times 25 times 6, 1,500 questions, and their answers, instead of the usual 10. So that's a lot more work, right, for the professor. And again, we run into this problem, what if you took the course when the professor was asking easy questions as opposed to asking hard questions? So the issues that arise are variances and difficulties of exams and projects, and then also these certification boards like ABET. Let's just put that one up as an example.
What about the professors? It's like some professors, I guess they tend to be lazy and not, sometimes they just don't want to do the extra work of changing the exam, so they might just.
Well, so I've spoken to some of the professors here, and they say, well, I have 2 exams, one for the fall and one for the spring. I'm like, well, there's this new thing called the internet. It doesn't matter. They can go back. They can go back to the beginning of time now. That Einstein's paper was from 1915, and I found it within a minute. So there's none of this. Oh, it's a year ago. They'll never find it. They'll find it. Don't worry. But so I kind of put the slide together. It's one thing to say that teacher's lazy. It's another thing when you go from 10 questions to 1,500 questions. So it's, but again, even if the professor does that, it introduces a new problem. From semester to semester, you can have hard and easy teachers. You have to be, take the professor when the course is easy. And then the certification companies don't like it, because there's too much variability. So you gotta, I guess the solution might be some hybrid of the two. But, so then you might think, okay, well, cheating only happens at schools where, the students are not that good. No, cheating's happening everywhere. And there's a big, if you Google the 2012 Harvard cheating scandal, you can read up about this. So a grader was grading take-home exams and started to notice, kind of like what I showed you before, students kept giving the same exact wrong answer that everyone got, so they must have been working together. So then the university has to kind of figure out, are they really cheating or not? And so they would find out student A and student B looked like they handed in the same exact wrong answers. So they'd ask the 2 students separately, did you work with anybody? And if one student said, no, I did it all by myself, and then the other student says, no, I worked with the one who handed in the same homework, then they know the first one was lying. So that was something that went over. There was another one at Columbia University, had giving online tests, and they had all the students who were taking the class online, off campus. They had to find a proctor somewhere, like a librarian, and then the school would mail the test to the librarian, and the librarian would give them the test. You know, you get 2 hours, don't use the calculator, whatever the rules were. And then one of the proctors was helping the student, you know, gave him the test a day in advance or something, and then that student gave the test to everyone else in the class. So threw off all the grades and the curve and all that. So yeah, it's hard to, you know, it's kind of a big issue. But, and then, you know, now the new thing is online testing. So exams, courses can be online. That means the students do not have to come in for a proctored exam. So proctoring can be done by getting each of the students to, let's say, find a local librarian or a co-worker who's honest, or a librarian who's honest. And then the school mails the test to this proctor who certifies that they will be honest. But not all proctors can proctor the exam at the same time. Let's say there was a test on Tuesday, and you have 20 different proctors, and one works in the day and can only give the test at night, and the other one can only give the test in the morning. So all the students are taking the test at different times of the day. So a student who takes the test in the morning could then email the rest of the students what's on the test. And, or like I say, a lot of times the university will mail the test out to the proctors a day or two early to make sure they got it, so they can say, hey, I didn't receive it, or I can't read it, send it again, you know. And one proctor could give it to one of the students 2 days early, and then that student could mail it around to half the
But
class.
then, what happens if like one of the proctors, because like at this college, most of the students who correct things are usually, I mean, they're usually students, the proctors. They're usually like for
Oh,
like,
for in class or for
Like-
online?
like for like when I took electronics, like well not electronics, when I took certain classes, they would have like a grad student correct the test, or like it's not always
Oh, yeah,
somebody
yeah.
who's.
Well, no, that's actually, I should have added that. So, yeah, a lot of schools, you know, especially colleges, this doesn't happen here too much, but there are colleges where there's 200, 250 students in a class. They'll give a test, so not only does the teacher doesn't have enough time to grade 250 tests, they'll get like 4 graduate students and divide the test into 4 piles and give a pile to each of the graduate students to grade it. And one graduate student might grade much harder than another one. So you'd have to get, you know, it'd be nice if the class is gonna be curved, it would be nice if it was the same person grading all the tests.
I mean, what I mean is like you can be friends with the grad students.
Oh, yeah, that's another, right, yeah, and that's a big problem. Because then they can change your answers and give you an A, so, yeah. So, yeah, so where this talk is leaving off is basically showing what the problem is, and then, does anyone have any ideas for solutions?
I mean, you'd have to pretty much get rid of the internet.
But, yeah, what we kind of need is there has to be some consistency from test to test. We don't want like everyone having a totally different test, but we can't have everyone having the same test. So it has to be a hybrid of like some similarity and some differences. So we could say, well, every test tests some basic fundamentals, and then they went off on different tangents. And then,
Well, what about like I don't know if you could use like, I guess, something that'll jam cell phones or the internet, cut off the internet so they can't.
yes, but that's like, I kind of broke it down into testing during the test and testing before the test. So if they had the answers before the test.
Oh,
right?
before, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so, but anyway, so yeah, it's more, this is a big problem, and not too many solutions out there. So you know, eCampus, the product a lot of colleges, including this one, uses on campus, doesn't have too much cheating protection. They send out a paper like, here's some suggestions on what you could do. You could shuffle the questions.
Oh, yeah.
And shuffling the questions doesn't, well, if everyone's sitting at home taking the test, they could just read through the questions and find matching questions and answer them together. Shuffling might help a little bit if they're sitting in a room, because then, and if you block them from going backwards. Have you ever taken a test where you can't go backwards? You answer question 1, you go to question 2, you can't go back to question 1?
I think that was, I think that's probably no, not the SAT. I forget which test.
Well, I mean, a lot of times that's just so that students who sit next to each other and can see each other's screen can't line up the questions. You know, go to question 1 and then look around, go to 2. They can't go backwards if they're out of order, and you can't go backwards. If you can go backwards, then they could keep lining up the questions with each other. But yeah, not strong solutions, and with technologies, it's getting tougher and tougher. And like I say, you know, before the internet, what cheating would get you is maybe a B becomes a B+, and it doesn't really throw off the class curve. But now what's happening is people who deserve Fs are getting As, and then that's really throwing off the class curve a lot.